open doors, I believe in yours. I will open doors, I believe in yours.
David Bowie. David Bowie is where we start from. David Bowie is in the words of someone else. David Bowie is wondering who he is today. David Bowie is being arranged. David Bowie is taking a drag on a cigarette and saying to you all, you never have control over who makes you famous. I just came up with some ideas and people took them for a walk. David Bowie is making contact here and now on February the 3rd, 2024. David Bowie is the David le Page Ensemble, featuring a narrator reading the words of Paul Morley. David Bowie is born a year and a half after the end of the Second World War. David Bowie is living on a mad planet. David Bowie is seeing that everything around him is alive. David Bowie is an evening of fun in the metropolis of your dreams. David Bowie is wanting to live. David Bowie is saying he's an instant star, just add water. David Bowie is acutely aware of how the media will edit him. David Bowie is arriving and departing at the same time. David Bowie is having an identity crisis. David Bowie is battling demons for real. David Bowie is predicting soon there will be nothing left of him. David Bowie is leaving his skeleton hanging in the air like Buddha, Shakespeare and Rambo. David Bowie is introducing himself as the thin white duke and then abandoning the character as soon as he can because it is eating his soul. David Bowie is saying he knew Station to Station was recorded in Los Angeles because years later he read it was. David Bowie is out of it. David Bowie is losing himself, but there will be another one along in a minute. David Bowie is living for 100 years in one night. David Bowie is damned, but sees with the eyes of an angel. David Bowie is consulting an invisible mirror. David Bowie is a man falling apart, a performance at the edge of time, an actor deep in thought and a freaky pop star spinning outside glamour. David Bowie is cracked pop star, apocalyptic cheerleader, plastic soul man, and the sinister thin white duke. David Bowie is perfect to play Thomas Newton, the man who fell to earth because, he said, I wasn't of this earth at that particular time. Bowie is a ghostly figure belonging nowhere, isolated, increasingly powerless alien, otherworldly traveller and mysterious adrift and troubled pop star, making things happen around him. David Bowie is like a child who can do what he wants. David Bowie is reading a book that begins, yes, I certainly was feeling depressed. David Bowie is getting so far out, he thinks one day he won't come back at all. David Bowie is measuring out his life in single lines. David Bowie is hallucinating. He is already being turned into nostalgic memorabilia, part of an endless anniversary culture marking things out in years, decades, centuries. David Bowie is wondering if he is the son of a king. David Bowie is loving to feel weird. David Bowie is hearing Station to Station as a song written by someone other than him. David Bowie is on the prowl. David Bowie is quoting someone, Jean Cocteau or Ray Bradbury or Adam Faith. Man seeks to escape himself in myth and does so by any means at his disposal. Drugs, alcohol or lies. Unable to withdraw into himself, he disguises himself. Lies and inaccuracy give him a few moments of comfort, the trifling feeling of escape experienced at a masked ball. He distances himself from that which he feels and sees. He invents, he transfigures, he mythifies, he creates, he fancies himself an artist. David Bowie is playing with sound. David Bowie is groping towards something terrible or divine. David Bowie is in possession of all the facts. Ludwig van Beethoven. Ludwig van Beethoven is. Ludwig van Beethoven is quite aware of what he's going through. Beethoven is overlapping his own agonies and the agonies of the time into his most powerful work. Beethoven is evolving into a higher character. Beethoven is in character. Beethoven is ahead of himself. Beethoven is where we start from. Beethoven is where we need to be. Beethoven is gazing a gazely stare. Beethoven is being interpreted. Beethoven is born into a world in turmoil, a world in transition, a world of wars, revolution and counter-revolution, truth and lies, tyrants and dreamers, a world like our own world. Beethoven is writing most of his greatest work in the midst of revolution, and the spirit of revolution impregnates every note of it. Beethoven is changing. Beethoven is convinced he is writing music for the future. David Bowie is saying tomorrow belongs to those who can hear it coming. Beethoven is thinking that his consciousness is shifting from sensation to sensation, from perception to perception, from idea to idea in endless succession. Beethoven is prone to depression, and art and only art can save him. Beethoven is singing, "I'm not a prophet or a Stone Age man, just a mortal with the potential to be a Superman." Beethoven is transformed into a rock star by Andy Warhol. Beethoven is calling for heavier instruments that resonate with vibration. Beethoven is sending his imagination to different places because of the absence of sound. Beethoven is afraid of loneliness, of seeing to the bottom of the abyss. Beethoven is not sure if he'll live or die. Beethoven is writing his first 6-string quartets between 1798 and 1800, the first 6 of 16. The early quartets. Beethoven is being measured against Haydn and Mozart on the way to being measured against himself. Beethoven's only writing one quartet in the 6 that make up Op 18 in a minor key. Beethoven is finding contrast within a single pulse. Beethoven is moving like a cat. Beethoven is sounding newly painted. Beethoven is exploring masks, disguises, and dramatic devices. Beethoven is a conjurer. Beethoven is a puppet master of the theatre of our emotions where all is shape-shifting. Beethoven is creating a work of theatre. Beethoven is showing us where time goes. Beethoven is accepting his own internal exile. Beethoven is feeling temporary about himself. Beethoven is floating in a most peculiar way. David Bowie is stepping through the door. David Bowie is cultivating the power to charm. David Bowie is beginning his first top 5 single, and eventually it will be his first #1. David Bowie is approximately folk singer, pop stranger, and musical futurist, watching Stanley Kubrick's A Space Odyssey, seeing a dead astronaut floating off into space, a star child looking over Earth. David Bowie is alone in the cinema. His girlfriend's left him, so high it makes his brain whirl, relating to the sense of isolation and getting an idea. David Bowie is developing a new focus for the vague, predatory, escapist reveries of the alienated young. David Bowie is sounding like nothing else, but he's sounding like he knows. David Bowie is ready for human landing on the moon. David Bowie is interested in the evolving world. David Bowie is using his songs to travel through time. David Bowie is saying we are the future now, and he celebrated the idea by using what he could to create it. David Bowie is leaving hundreds of clues, not least about the miraculous structure of the human body. David Bowie is endlessly staging himself. David Bowie is catching a glimpse of his former self. David Bowie is dying in one life before entering another. David Bowie is playing a 9-shilling stylophone owned by his friend Mark Bolan, a toy-like portable synthesizer with 2 settings invented in 1967, played by touching a stylus to a small 20-note metal keyboard. David Bowie is playing a 12-string acoustic guitar, the instrument he was mostly using at the time. David Bowie is in the head of an astronaut who doesn't know what he's doing or where he's going. David Bowie is leaving Major Tom where he is. David Bowie is heading into orbit. David Bowie is a novelty act. David Bowie is dated and timeless, a gimmick and transcendent. David Bowie is remembering the future in fragments. David Bowie is looking very different today. David Bowie is changing. David Bowie is far above the world. David Bowie is being played in space. David Bowie is releasing a record of the year into the record shops on the 11th of July, 1969. David Bowie is giving each of us something different to say. David Bowie is blue, and there's nothing he can do. David Bowie is leaving Major Tom where he is. David Bowie is May God's love be with you. David Bowie is 10. David Bowie is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines on. Beethoven is leaving the city and arriving in the country. Beethoven is embarking on a new path. Beethoven is focused on something beyond the frame. Beethoven is perfecting some holy zone of concentration. Beethoven is taking long, solitary walks through the countryside and thinking no one loves the country as much as I do. Beethoven is thinking the woods, the trees and the rocks give me the resonance I need. Beethoven is coming up with ideas in the multi-sensory, open-ended outdoors. Beethoven is eager to discover a train of thought he can never fully unravel. Beethoven is at one with nature. Beethoven is living in the moment. Beethoven is breathing the fresh air, seeing the sun and the open sky, marveling at the earth's existence and the unfathomable mystery of how it sustains life. And the birds keep flying and the flowers keep growing. Beethoven is writing the 5th and the 6th symphony at the same time, sheer ecstasy being held in check by contemplative order and harmony, anticipating in one the static flux of minimalism, in the other the found sounds of musique concrète. Beethoven is experimenting with symphonic extremity in the 6th symphony as much as the more obviously revolutionary 5th. Beethoven is naming Symphony No. 6 the Pastoral Symphony. Beethoven is not storming the heavens, he is enjoying life on earth. Beethoven is suspending time. Beethoven is sitting in a tin can. Beethoven is feeling very still. Beethoven is seeing earth from outer space. Beethoven is out of reach. Beethoven is an exact contemporary of Wordsworth, sharing the poet's emotion, recollected in tranquility. His belief that nature was evidence of the world's soul. Beethoven is not describing nature, but expressing a yearning for the peacefulness of mind gained from experiencing it. Beethoven is generating repetition to create a monotony that reflects the constant sounds of nature. Beethoven is soothing the mind, whilst Edward G. Robinson is living his last moments in Soylent Green. Beethoven is somehow in love with male and female centaurs in Walt Disney's Fantasia. Beethoven is letting his imagination flow and fly before nature goes its own way. Beethoven is feeling the fragility of life. Beethoven is beginning quietly. David Bowie is afraid of flying. David Bowie is traveling by train. David Bowie is stopping over in communist Warsaw in 1973 or 1976 or both and sensing something grey, bleak, sinister and lost. David Bowie is in eternal exile. David Bowie is searching for some kind of salvation. David Bowie is wondering what is on the other side of the Iron Curtain. David Bowie is asking strategic collaborator Brian Eno to compose a very slow piece of music with an almost religious feeling. Brian Eno is writing a defense of melancholy. David Bowie is imitating Brian Eno's composition. David Bowie is constructing a personal vision based on the personal vision of another curious soul. David Bowie is, with Brian Eno, the hollow men of the city lost in the labyrinth of their own isolation with their restless minds. David Bowie is studying foreignness. David Bowie is getting what he wanted. David Bowie is yearning for freedom. David Bowie is reincarnated in a city far, far away. David Bowie is inventing a language or remembering a lost language. David Bowie is making a city of the mind out of sound. David Bowie is approaching a city, and as he gets closer, it changes. David Bowie is inspired by a choir named after a country that no longer exists. David Bowie is accompanied by an electric orchestra. David Bowie is savoring the ungodly gloom. David Bowie is seeing himself in a city that sees itself through his eyes. David Bowie is reporting from a place that isn't. David Bowie is wondering how a displaced place survives. David Bowie is lying alone in a strange city, its decay a mirror of his own. David Bowie is giving away some of his secrets. David Bowie is haunted by his own music, his own life. Beethoven is leaving one world as another takes shape. Beethoven is out of sight. David Bowie is hearing echoes in empty shells. David Bowie is thinking about a lost generation, about a fallen world. David Bowie is seeing people shuffle like ghosts at night, their faces twisted, haunted by memories they can't forget, a reflection of our fleeting age. David Bowie is chanting his prayers to an empty sky as the dictator's crank turns inside our screen. David Bowie is using the opening track of side 2, the night side, the dark side, the other side of the Low album, to introduce his tours in 1978 and 2002. Beethoven is inspired by the murder scene in Mozart's Don Giovanni. Beethoven is titling a piece of music he wrote in 1801, Sonata in the manner of fantasy, although to him it was really just Piano Sonata number 14. Beethoven is astonishingly, for the time, opening a sonata slowly and hypnotically. Beethoven is finding in the sonata form a living organism, not a stereotyped form. Beethoven is imagining a silver space. Beethoven is suffering from a whistling buzz in his ears and having difficulty discerning high notes. Beethoven is not hearing the world, but he believes in it. Beethoven is wondering what music will sound like to him when he is deaf. Beethoven is condemned to live life almost alone, like he has been banished. Beethoven is sending his imagination to different places because of the absence of sound. Beethoven is in love, but it will come to nothing. Beethoven is becoming great because he hears something else from everyone else combined with nothing at all. Beethoven is, said Glenn Gould, writing a masterpiece of intuitive organization that escalates from first note to last. Beethoven is dying in 1827. 5 years before his sonata, which sounded to some like water mingling with a pale moonlight with its moon-cast shadows, gets the romantic Moonlight nickname. Beethoven is sounding a lament for an impossible love. Beethoven is articulating his sexual desires. Beethoven is writing a melody as a layer of melancholy. Beethoven is reluctant to believe his happiness. Beethoven is writing the soundtrack to Shakespeare's "How sweet the moonlight sleeps upon this bank, here we well sit, and let the sounds of music creep in your ears, soft stillness in the night become the touches of sweet heaven." Beethoven is becoming because by the Beatles, because John Lennon asks Yoko Ono to play the moonlight chords backwards. Beethoven is seeing the moon, adding the light of an enchanting autumn night. Beethoven is making an absent thing present. Beethoven is the moon watching over us. Beethoven is face to face with the man who sold the moonlight. David Bowie is going tick-tock, tick-tock, tick for beginning. David Bowie is getting closer. David Bowie is glad to see you. David Bowie is sad to see you. David Bowie is what a surprise. David Bowie is going to the weird ends of the world. David Bowie is reading the news to all the young dudes. David Bowie is at the crash scene of species extinction. David Bowie is witnessing the collapse of time. David Bowie is needing so many people. David Bowie is putting everyone in a song. David Bowie is hearing the last words of everyone. David Bowie is putting hopelessness into a drum beat. David Bowie is turning things upside down. David Bowie is staying inside our head for a long, long time. David Bowie is channeling the no-future sensibility of pessimism and resignation that leaked through the 70s. David Bowie is seeing the darkness coming through the cracks. David Bowie is explaining how, as the sky blackens, drones are flying on Mars. David Bowie is needing an opening track for his 5th album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. David Bowie is recording it in early November 1971. David Bowie is first playing it live on January the 11th, 1972 for a John Peel radio session. David Bowie is filming it for the Old Grey Whistle Test on February the 8th, 1972, the first time it's ever seen live. David Bowie is taking the time to play the prophet. David Bowie is deciding stories about the future, always about now. David Bowie is in tune with the ultimate judgment of a cosmic power. David Bowie is confronting a version of the world that might have been. David Bowie is putting what if to music. David Bowie is changing the possible futures that grip our imagination. David Bowie is going tick-tock, tick-tock, tock for end. David Bowie is famous for his visions of the end. David Bowie is about to become a pop star, an instrument of hope and generosity, but first, a haunting warning. David Bowie is teasing us. David Bowie is reviewing his own performance. David Bowie is misleading us. David Bowie is making it clear. David Bowie is sobbing as he sings. David Bowie is singing a song for the end of the world. David Bowie is turning the dance of life into a dance of death. David Bowie is keeping his mind off thinking about death. David Bowie is walking like a ghost through a haunted house. David Bowie is creating fictions of origin and end in order to imbue life with meaning and significance, to feel part of a more complete and less ephemeral design. David Bowie is releasing The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars on the 16th of June 1972. David Bowie is wondering, who can we pray to at the end of an era? David Bowie is marking out time, the destroyer, the liberator, the purifier. David Bowie is explaining our days will be short. David Bowie is facing up to how we can't save ourselves from ourselves. David Bowie is saying it's happening now and these are the signs and there is no thunder and lightning and no archangels. David Bowie is breathing in every last bit of air remaining. David Bowie is coming to the end of his song. David Bowie is pushing through the market square. Beethoven is sublimating a lifetime of unbearable bodily suffering to the irrepressible vitality of his creative spirit. Beethoven is, however, reluctantly creating music without sound. Beethoven is demanding the existence of a new kind of piano. Beethoven is changing the world of hearing composers who come after him. Beethoven is seeing his own actions as experiments and questions, as attempts to find out something. Beethoven is saying that the idea is not to live forever, but to create something that will. Beethoven is writing his version of Bach's Art of Fugue, a fantastic intellectual challenge, sometimes thought of as a last will and testament, a theoretical compendium displaying all the known devices and exploring all the variations of which a fugue subject is susceptible. Beethoven is trying to do one of the hardest things imaginable, which is to write a great fugue in the shadow of the master in flight, J.S. Bach, for whom this impossible assignment proved to be so much playtime. Beethoven is at the end of an all-consuming journey made for the sake of art. Beethoven is looking back to Bach and ahead to Bartók at the same time. Beethoven is basing everything on the idea there is always more mystery. Beethoven is pushing music right to the limits, even at the very end. Beethoven is using music, what else, to make sense of the ever-present possibility of complete collapse, to bring resolve and purpose to the human condition in the midst of uncertainty. Beethoven is writing music at the end of his life that some take it to mean he must be mad. Beethoven is wearing a mask of his own face. Beethoven is what he believes in. Beethoven is telling us human life is shocking. Beethoven is the ghosts inside him. David Bowie is saying it seemed unthinkable for me to leave the world forever before I had produced all that I felt called upon to produce. David Bowie is taking a last look in the mirror. He is smoking his last cigarette, answering his last email, wondering what the hell happened to me, a last wonder nowhere in particular. David Bowie is in the end himself, and yesterday becomes tomorrow. David Bowie is wanting to prove the sustaining power of music. David Bowie is saying in an interview, I use music to achieve something I have in mind, an idea or a feeling I want to get across. But I'm not one of those people who treat it as something sacred. You've got to play around with it or it gets to be a dreadful bore. Beethoven is saying that music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. Music is the electrical soil in which the spirit lives, thinks, and invents. Beethoven is asking, must it be? It must be. Beethoven is asking us to focus on David Bowie is here to be discovered. David Bowie is thinking fame is an interesting trick. David Bowie is changing into fame, charging into fame like he is being chased by something diabolical. David Bowie is seeing a world coming that believes fame is everything. David Bowie is reading that fame and tranquility can never be bedfellows. David Bowie believes fame is a form of incomprehension. Fame is a fickle food upon a shifting plate. Fame is finally only the sum total of all the misunderstanding that can gather around a new name. It means millions of people have the wrong idea about you. Fame is David Bowie's first American #1, which featured fame in the form of John Lennon, who was just passing through on the way to a certain end. David Bowie is making fame be about being more than famous. David Bowie is thinking he is the most important person on the planet. David Bowie is thinking that America is the loneliest person on the planet. David Bowie is plummeting into rock star chaos and Hollywood dread, but still having the wit to send back messages, a poetic reporter on the writhing details of an altered state. David Bowie is looking like he only just managed to put his skin on in time. David Bowie is in the same tent as the clowns and the freaks. David Bowie is making himself the agent of what will be. David Bowie is all about the weirdness of fame. David Bowie is wearing a mask of his own face. David Bowie is taking advantage of what the moment offers. David Bowie is high on life and feeling low. David Bowie is finding his thoughts are being given a curious motion. David Bowie is fame. Beethoven is completing his second piano concerto to show off his own playing as the pianist-composer, but premiering it in 1798 as if it was his first, an announcement of intent and refining it over the next few years. Beethoven is emerging with his own style and personality, slipping away from his main point of departure, Mozart, and his teacher Haydn, already glimpsing everything he will do as the catalyst for a new secular epoch, as a force of nature at the dawn of Romanticism, including being melodious and radical at the same time, jolting music out of itself, bringing within music's scope a new range of experiences and setting his sights on the apocalyptic end of tonality. Beethoven is destined to produce masterpieces, some of which become so familiar they lose the sense they moved music into the future. Beethoven is freely challenging the ordered logic that had governed music for a generation. Beethoven is not going to be hemmed in by convention or decorum. Beethoven is understanding how to create a sense of occasion. Beethoven is using the largest orchestra ever used for a concerto. Beethoven is opening the second movement with the piano itself. Beethoven is in a world of his own in the serene, introspective second movement, after and before different worlds of their own, tentatively anticipating, as if it is already welling up inside him, the mind-bending depth, tenderness and experience, the transcendent lateness of the late quartets. Beethoven is finding a way to tell us what we might become. Beethoven is a source of truth. Is David Bowie asking a question that can ever be really answered? Is David Bowie writing his most significant song? Is David Bowie representing a world becoming increasingly obsessed with movies, music and television? Is David Bowie capturing the essence of a teenager's life? Is David Bowie building a glittering bridge in the sky between early British dancehall and rock and roll, between Judy Garland and the Beatles, between Jacques Brel and Billie Eilish, between the innocence of the past and the utopianism of the future? Is David Bowie coming to grips with the ineffable? Is David Bowie questioning the blurred lines between reality and fantasy? Is David Bowie writing his version of My Way? Is David Bowie feeling desperate? Is David Bowie knowing better than anyone that pop stars are meant to be weird? Is David Bowie in the freakiest show? Is David Bowie loving to sing certain words in a certain order for the sake of how they sound? Is David Bowie saying sometimes words are too much and sometimes words are not enough? Is David Bowie a master at understanding the yin and yang of major and minor chords, how words symbolize language and music symbolizes music? Is David Bowie saying that melancholy is the happiest of being sad and sadness is melancholy that has taken on lightness? Is David Bowie looking at you while you're looking at him? Is David Bowie using machine-age knife magic? Is David Bowie liberated by juxtaposition? Is David Bowie taking photographs of his thoughts? Is David Bowie writing a song about plagiarism? Is David Bowie writing a song like no other because it occurred to him he could? Is David Bowie showing he believes in magic by making something magical? Is David Bowie endlessly staging himself? Is David Bowie nowhere to be seen? Is David Bowie feeling disconnected? Is David Bowie showing the way forward, mapping possible routes with his imaginative logic, his tart tongue, his zoomorphic spirit, his love of dazzling with contrasts, his camp intensity, his scintillating nonchalance, his flighty defiance, his celebration of pleasure, his skill at locating, absorbing and transforming the idea of being different, and his controlling self-conscious ability to make connections between the strangest things? Is David Bowie saying, you must get to know me sometimes? Is David Bowie a holy prince of enigma taking charge of his surroundings? Is David Bowie ready to grant your wishes? Is David Bowie reading your mind? Is David Bowie working out how to create all the art he dreams of? Is there life on Mars? Beethoven is now or never. Beethoven is arousing passion. Beethoven is changing the idea of what a symphony can be. Beethoven is developing in absolutely his own way. Beethoven is replacing genteel, aristocratic elegance with edginess, disruption, and pathos. Beethoven is fighting to overcome suicidal thoughts, art and music and revolutionary spirit holding him back from taking his own life. Beethoven is feeling that a hero is someone dissatisfied with their own condition who resolves to do something about it. Beethoven is making a heroic stand against the battery of ailments. Beethoven is letting us look at something we think we know and understand and getting us to see it with new eyes. Beethoven is giving an order to himself. Beethoven is changing the name of his Third Symphony from the Bonaparte Symphony, and it is no longer dedicated to Napoleon. It is a heroic symphony for a nameless hero, giving their life to something bigger than themselves, someone who understands the responsibility that comes with their freedom, someone who walks into the unknown. Beethoven is arguing with the gods and awakens devils to contest his vision. Beethoven is proving that sometimes the dead don't die. Beethoven is saying that a hero cannot be a hero except in a heroic world. Beethoven is thinking that the most important person you meet in your life is your higher self. Beethoven is still changing. David Bowie is reinventing the idea of heroism. He's saying a real hero is a hero by mistake. David Bowie is singing, be your own hero. David Bowie is singing that something is missing, something is lost. David Bowie is convinced that when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. David Bowie is putting to music the longing for impossible things, precisely because they are impossible. Nostalgia for what never was, the desire for what could have been, regret over not being someone else, dissatisfaction with the world's existence. All these half tones of the soul's consciousness create in us a painful landscape, an eternal sunset of what we are. David Bowie is putting to music Immanuel Kant, rules for happiness, something to do, someone to love, something to hope for. David Bowie is saying that those who do not weep do not see. David Bowie is realizing that everything was fading before our eyes, and that many of the loveliest of colors had already disappeared, or existed only where no one saw them, in the submarine gardens fathoms deep below the surface of the sea. David Bowie is able to step into the dreams of others, from one to another in a moment, because he's found a way to belong anywhere, transported by song. David Bowie is still changing. Beethoven is writing farewell, and do not wholly forget me when I am dead. David Bowie is saying, the memory of a well-spent life is eternal.
This is